It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I received the unexpected call from my parents. We hadn't spoken much in recent years, our relationship strained by past disagreements and unspoken grievances. So, when my mother suggested we meet for dinner at my favorite childhood restaurant, I was both surprised and cautiously optimistic. Perhaps this was their way of extending an olive branch, a chance to mend the fractured ties that had kept us apart. The restaurant held a special place in my heart. It was where we celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and countless family milestones. The thought of returning there stirred a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. I wondered what prompted this sudden desire for reconciliation. Was it guilt, loneliness, or perhaps a realization of the time lost? As I prepared for the evening, memories flooded back, laughter over shared meals, the warmth of familial bonds, and the gradual erosion of those connections. I chose my attire carefully, wanting to present myself as composed and open, yet guarded. The drive to the restaurant was filled with anticipation, each mile bringing me closer to a confrontation with the past. Upon arrival, the familiar facade of the restaurant greeted me, unchanged by time. Inside, the ambience was as I remembered, soft lighting, the gentle hum of conversations, and the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals. I spotted my parents at a corner table, their faces reflecting a mix of nervousness and hope. They stood as I approached, and we exchanged tentative hugs, the awkwardness palpable. As we settled into our seats, the initial pleasantries gave way to a strained silence. Menus were perused, orders placed, and still, the elephant in the room loomed large. Finally, my father cleared his throat, signaling the start of a conversation that would unravel truths I wasn't prepared to face. The moment my father cleared his throat, I knew something was coming. Not the usual small talk or awkward reminiscing, but something heavier. He looked down for a second, fingers tapping against the edge of the table like he was choosing each word with caution. My mother, seated beside him, kept her eyes on her napkin, folding and unfolding it in her lap. I stayed quiet, sensing they needed the space to speak first. "We wanted to talk to you about something important," my father finally said. His voice had that slightly brittle tone, the one I remembered from the few times he tried to apologize but never fully did. I waited. "We know we've been distant. We know there are things we didn't handle right with you. And we want to change that." I blinked, unsure what to make of it. This wasn't like them. Apologies were rare in my family, and heartfelt ones were practically non-existent. "We've made mistakes," my mother added softly. "Especially around the time you left college, and after you moved out." Ah, there it was. That chapter. That sore buried wound. I had dropped out of college halfway through sophomore year. I'd been struggling, mentally, financially, emotionally, and they hadn't supported me. Instead, they had scolded me, accused me of being lazy, wasting their money, shaming the family name. I moved out shortly after that. We didn't speak for almost a year. I nodded slowly. "Okay, so why now? Why this dinner?" They exchanged a glance, and I saw it, that hesitation again. And then my father said it. "Because we're getting a divorce." I froze. "What? We didn't want you to hear it from someone else," my mother said quickly. "We're telling the family soon. But you deserve to know first." I stared at them, trying to process what I'd just heard. They'd been married for over 30 years. I had never even seen them fight, at least not openly. They were the couple that hosted New Year's dinners, that danced at weddings, that smiled in holiday cards. And now this? Why? I finally asked, my voice a little shakier than I wanted it to be. They were both quiet for a moment. Then my father leaned in and said, "Because we've been pretending for too long. And we don't want to live like that anymore." It was an answer, but not the whole answer. I knew that instinctively. Something else was going on, something deeper, something they weren't telling me. And I was about to find out, whether they liked it or not. Just then, the waiter arrived with our appetizers, placing each plate down with a polite smile. But my appetite was gone. I could barely look at the food. I wanted to scream, cry, walk out, but I did none of those things. Instead, I looked at both of them, studied their faces, and asked the one question I hadn't prepared to ask that night. "What else are you not telling me?" And that's when the real truth began to unfold. The question just sat there between us, hanging in the air like heavy fog. "What else are you not telling me?" My father didn't meet my eyes this time. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a few seconds, neither of them said anything. I could feel my chest tighten. I wasn't a kid anymore, but in that moment, I felt like one, helpless, anxious, bracing for a blow I couldn't quite name yet. Then my mother spoke, her voice low and careful. "There's someone else." I swallowed hard. My father looked up, finally, and clarified. "Not for me. For her." I turned sharply to my mother, eyebrows raised, shocked into silence. She nodded slowly. "It's someone I reconnected with a year ago. An old friend from high school." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be furious. How could she? But the more I looked at her, really looked, the more I realized how tired she looked. Not guilty. Not smug. Just worn down. Like someone who had been carrying a secret for too long and was finally setting it down. "You're saying you're leaving Dad for someone else?" I asked, disbelief cracking my voice. "No," she said quickly. "This isn't just about him. It's about us. I haven't been happy in years. We've both been pretending for your sake, for the sake of appearances. And I know how it sounds. But I couldn't keep lying. Not to you, not to myself." I glanced at my dad, waiting for his reaction. He didn't argue. He didn't even flinch. "She's right," he said simply. "We haven't been partners for a long time. Just roommates. And we're both done pretending." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it all pressing into my bones. 30 years of marriage. Gone. Just like that. But why now? I asked. Why this restaurant? Why make it a whole dinner event? My father hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He slid it across the table toward me. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "Read it." I opened the paper and scanned the words. It was a letter. From me. Written when I was 13. "Dear Mom and Dad, if we ever stop loving each other, please don't pretend. I'd rather you be happy than fake being okay just for me. I'll still love you no matter what." My heart nearly stopped. I remembered writing that letter. After watching a friend's parents divorce and seeing how awful their home life had become. I remembered slipping it into my dad's desk drawer, thinking he'd never read it. I didn't even think they had saved it. And yet, here it was nearly 2 decades later, unfolded in front of me. My throat tightened. "You kept this?" "We did," my father said. "And we reread it this year. It reminded us that we don't need to keep pretending. That maybe you'd understand." Tears welled in my eyes. Not out of anger. Not out of betrayal. But from the sheer, overwhelming wave of emotion I hadn't expected to feel. Love, sadness, nostalgia, grief, all tangled up. "We never stopped loving you," my mother added gently. "We just stopped loving this life we were stuck in." I didn't speak for a while. I just stared at the letter in my hands and tried to breathe through the weight in my chest. This dinner wasn't about celebration. It was about closure. But something still didn't sit right. Because if that was the whole truth, why did I feel like there was still more? My instincts weren't wrong. Because what happened next would be the moment that shattered me completely. The air felt different now. Still. Almost too still. That kind of silence where even the sound of silverware clinking in the distance felt too loud. I sat with the letter in my lap, still trying to absorb everything, but something inside me refused to settle. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was trauma, but I knew my parents weren't done talking. Something about the way they avoided eye contact, the way my mother was fidgeting with her ring, said this wasn't the end of the story. "There's more," I finally said, not even asking, just stating. And my father winced, like he hated how well I knew him. He nodded slowly, then glanced at my mom. She gave him a barely there nod. And then, without a word, he pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, hesitated, and handed it to me. One photo. Just one. But it hit me like a truck. It was taken just last week, based on the timestamp. My parents were standing with another young woman in a park. She looked to be in her early 20s, maybe a few years younger than me. Her smile was warm, her arm linked through my dad's like it belonged there. And she looked just like me. Same cheekbones. Same eyes. The resemblance was undeniable. "What is this?" I asked, barely getting the words out. My hand was shaking. My father leaned forward. "Her name is Lily. She's your half-sister." Everything inside me went numb. "I had an affair," he continued, "about 23 years ago. It was a mistake. One I've regretted for a long time. Your mother found out back then, and it nearly destroyed us. But she chose to stay. We tried to move past it. I could barely breathe. My throat closed up, and it felt like the walls of the restaurant were pressing in. She didn't grow up knowing me," he continued. "But recently she reached out. Wanted to meet. And I met her. We've seen each other a few times. Your mother has too." I stared at the picture again, the world around me blurring at the edges. I wasn't just shocked, I was shattered. A sister? A secret one? My whole life, I believed I was an only child. That all the silence, the pressure, the expectations on me were because I was the only one. And now that wasn't true. "You told me all those years I was selfish, that I had everything, that I was ungrateful," I whispered. "But you were the one hiding a whole daughter?" "I wanted to protect you," he said weakly. "It wasn't the right time. You were young." "No," I snapped. "You didn't protect me. You lied to me." My mother finally spoke up, her voice breaking. "We both did. We thought burying it would be best. We were wrong." Tears spilled down my face before I could stop them. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the lies that followed. The years of pretending. The gaslighting. The fake smiles. The pressure to be perfect, when all the while, they'd been hiding a different version of our family. "Why are you telling me this now?" I demanded. My dad sighed. "Because she's here. Tonight. At this restaurant." I froze. "What?" "She wanted to meet you. We thought, maybe, if things went well tonight." I stood up so fast my chair screeched. Heads turned. I didn't care. "You brought her here?" "She's just in the back," my mom said quietly. "She doesn't know if she should come over or not." I felt like I was going to vomit. They had invited me here not just to break the news, but to introduce me to the living proof of their biggest betrayal. I backed away from the table, heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to escape. "You didn't just break my heart tonight," I said. "You broke everything." And with that, I walked out. But what happened next would change the way I saw everything, even her. The cold night air hit my face the second I stepped outside. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to get away from them, from their voices, from their betrayal. My mind raced. I couldn't stop replaying that photo. Her face. The way my dad stood beside her like it was the most normal thing in the world. And then the cherry on top, they brought her here. As if I would just smile and hug her. I reached the sidewalk and leaned against the restaurant's outer wall, trying to catch my breath. My heart was thudding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Hey, are you okay? I turned around slowly. And there she was. Lily, the girl from the photo, standing just a few feet away from me, in a simple sweater and jeans, her hands nervously twisting around each other. Her expression was uncertain, not smug, not proud. Just human. I wasn't going to come say anything, she said quickly. I told them I wasn't ready, that you didn't owe me anything. But I saw you rush out and I felt like maybe you shouldn't be alone. I didn't know what to say. I just stared. She really did look like me. Same eyes. Same chin. Even the same nervous way of standing with one shoulder raised a little. It was eerie. And painful. You're Lily, I finally said. She nodded. And you've known about me? Not really, she admitted. Not until recently. My mom told me about everything a few months ago. She had been holding it in for years. Said she didn't want to ruin anything. I looked at her sharply. And that's when you decided to come find him? I didn't come to take anything, she said quietly. I just wanted to understand. Where I came from. Why he never called. Why I didn't get a chance to know him. I didn't expect to find all of this. There was something in her voice that made me pause. She didn't sound like someone who barged into our lives on purpose. She sounded like someone who was also broken, who had been missing pieces her whole life too. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly, her eyes meeting mine. Because I wouldn't blame you if you did. I exhaled slowly. I don't even know you. She nodded. But maybe we're both just collateral damage, you know? I didn't respond right away. My throat felt thick again. Tears pricked at my eyes, not from anger this time, but from sadness. A shared kind of sadness. Because she was right. We were both born into a story we didn't write. Both raised with half-truths, with silence, with expectations. She didn't ask to be born from an affair. I didn't ask to be raised in a lie. I don't hate you, I whispered. But I can't pretend this doesn't hurt. I get it. A long pause settled between us. Then she took a small step closer. I'm not trying to replace anything. Or anyone. But if you ever wanted to just talk or scream, or have someone who knows how complicated this is, I'm here. And then she did something I didn't expect. She turned and walked away. No pressure. No hugging. No guilt trip. Just gave me space. The very thing my parents never gave me. I stood there for a long time after she left, unsure of what I was feeling. Anger. Grief. Maybe even curiosity. Because for the first time, I saw her not as the product of betrayal, but as someone who had just as much to heal from as I did. I didn't go back into the restaurant. I went home instead. And that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my childhood photo albums. I looked at my past, really looked. And I started to wonder, how many smiles in those photos were real? And how many were just like theirs, faked, forced, framed for the sake of looking okay? But deep inside, something was shifting. And I had no idea what was waiting for me just 1 week later. A few days passed, but the weight in my chest never really lifted. My parents kept calling and texting, trying to explain. But I couldn't bring myself to listen. I needed space, air, clarity, anything but their justifications. Then, one morning, while I was clearing out the bottom drawer of my old desk, the one I hadn't touched in years, I found a faded envelope. It was wedged behind some old books and dusty notebooks from high school. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was a birthday card or a college application letter I forgot to mail. But when I turned it over, my heart skipped a beat. It had my name on it, but not in my mom's handwriting. Not my dad's either. This was delicate, careful, like someone had poured emotion into every letter. And it wasn't recent. The ink had faded just enough to show it had been written years ago. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, a letter. Dear Ellie, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if your mom will even let me give this to you. But I have to try. I owe you that much. My breath caught in my throat. It was from my dad. But not the version of him I knew. The strong, always in control father who lectured me on career choices and curfews. This was softer. Conflicted. Real. I made a mistake. A big one. Years ago, before you were born, I was young and selfish. I was scared of responsibility, scared of being tied down. When I met your mother, I didn't tell her everything. And when she got pregnant, I panicked. I chose comfort over courage. I stayed where it was easier, where the lies could be buried. I had to sit down. But then you were born. And everything changed. You were this tiny, perfect reminder of what love really means. And every day I watched you grow, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could be better. That I could bury the past and be a father you were proud of. My eyes were burning. But the thing about secrets is they don't stay buried forever. And no matter how much I tried to pretend the past was over, it wasn't. She called me one night. Lily's mom. Said our daughter wanted to know her roots. I didn't know what to say. I was afraid if I told you, I'd lose you. So I chose silence again. And that's my biggest regret. I stopped reading. Tears spilled freely now. The letter wasn't an excuse. It wasn't some manipulative plea for forgiveness. It was raw, vulnerable. Maybe the first honest thing I'd ever received from him. But that didn't erase the pain. Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table, letter in hand. My phone buzzed again, another call from Mom. For once, I picked up. Ellie, her voice was anxious. Are you okay? No, I said. But I found the letter. She was silent for a moment. I told him not to give it to you. I thought it would hurt more than help. It did both, I whispered. She sighed. We tried to protect you. No, Mom. You tried to protect yourselves. From shame. From questions. From accountability. There was a pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. You're right. I blinked. I didn't know what to do when he confessed. I told him to never bring it up again. I was scared you'd hate us. That you'd leave. I did leave, I said flatly. In every way that matters. But you're still my daughter. And I'm sorry. Her voice cracked at the end. For a moment, I almost softened. But I couldn't go back, not yet. Maybe not ever, not the same way. After the call, I stared at the ceiling, holding the letter like it was a lifeline. That's when I remembered something. A drawer. In Dad's old office. A place he always kept locked. I still had the spare key. It was almost midnight when I arrived at their house. I didn't tell them I was coming. I walked in quietly. The place looked the same, but everything felt different now. Like I was stepping into a stranger's life. I found the drawer. It took a few tries, but the key worked. Inside were papers, some files, old photos, and a USB drive. No label. No hints. Just a plain black stick sitting in the middle of a mess of documents. I took it. Back home, I plugged it into my laptop. A single file. For Ellie, if she ever learns the truth. I clicked play. It was a video. My dad sitting in his office. Hair slightly grayer than now. Face older, tired. Hi, sweetheart, he began, his voice shaky. If you're watching this, I guess the secret's out. He looked away from the camera, swallowed hard, then looked back. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to understand. I loved you. From the first moment I saw you, I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. But I wasn't always a good man. I wasn't always honest. And in trying to protect you from the mess I made, I think I might have just broken something more sacred. The camera shook slightly, like he'd moved it. You deserve truth, even if it hurts. Even if it makes you walk away. Just know every birthday, every achievement, every moment, I was proud of you. I still am. He paused. Tears welled in his eyes. I'll always be your dad. But I'll understand if you stop calling me that. The screen faded to black. And I sat there in silence, staring at the screen long after the video ended. It was a long night, but something in me shifted. Maybe because I saw something real. Maybe because even broken people can show love in flawed ways. Maybe because, despite everything, part of me still loved them too. The next morning, I sent a text to my parents. Let's talk. Just us three. No surprises. Because sometimes the path to healing starts with showing up, even when everything inside you wants to run. The plan was simple. Meet at their house, no siblings, no stepsisters, no distractions. Just me, Mom, and Dad. I needed answers. And closure. Maybe not forgiveness yet, but at least clarity. I told them we weren't going to pretend everything was okay. I didn't want fake smiles or small talk about the weather. Just truth. When I arrived, they were already sitting in the living room, side by side, like two kids waiting to be scolded. For a moment, they looked smaller than I remembered, older too. Maybe they had always looked like that, and I had just refused to see it. Hi, I said. Hi, sweetheart, Mom whispered. Dad stood up, but I held up a hand. Sit, please. Let's not turn this into a performance. He sat back down. I pulled a chair and sat across from them, holding the letter in one hand and the USB drive in the other. I placed both on the table. I read the letter. I watched the video. They exchanged glances, like two actors mid-script realizing the audience had already seen behind the curtain. I took a deep breath. I don't even know where to start. Maybe with this. Why did you keep it hidden from me for so long? Dad looked at Mom, but she didn't say anything. His shoulders dropped. Because we didn't want you to see us differently. You mean you didn't want me to see you differently? I said, pointing at him. I thought I was protecting you, he muttered. You weren't, I said softly. You were protecting yourself from the shame of having a whole other daughter. You made that decision for me. Mom finally spoke. We were afraid if you found out, you'd think we loved you less. And instead, I said, voice cracking, you made me feel like I was never really your daughter to begin with. Silence. Then Dad leaned forward. You're right. There's no excuse. I was a coward. I chose the easy path again and again. But Ellie, I swear, I never stopped loving you. And Lily? I asked. Did you love her too? He looked pained. I didn't get the chance. Her mother cut me off when I said I wouldn't leave my marriage. And when she contacted me again all these years later, I was too ashamed to face it. I nodded slowly. So you abandoned her twice. He winced. Does she know about me? I asked. Yes, Mom answered. He told her everything when she turned 16. That's when she started asking questions. And does she hate me too? No, Dad said. She asked if she could meet you. That night at the restaurant, it wasn't meant to be like that. We didn't plan to ambush you. But you did. He looked down. I stood up and walked around the room, trying to breathe through the storm inside me. You know what hurts the most? I said finally. That you thought I couldn't handle the truth. That you thought I wasn't strong enough to deal with a complicated family. That you denied me the chance to know my own sister. Mom had tears streaming down her face now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I turned to her. I don't need another apology, Mom. I need honesty. Full, unfiltered honesty. Did you ever want to tell me? She nodded. There were times when you asked about why we don't have more family around, when you looked sad at school events where other kids had cousins and siblings. I wanted to say something, but then I'd look at your face and I'd think, what if this breaks her? And instead, you let the lie grow until it broke everything. Dad stood up slowly. Ellie, we can't undo what we did. But maybe we can start again. From here. With truth. I looked at both of them. You're going to have to earn that. We will, they said in unison. I nodded, wiping my cheek with my sleeve. There was a long pause, the kind where hearts try to decide if they can start beating together again. Then I took out my phone. Call her, I said to Dad. Who? Lily. His eyes widened. You said she wanted to meet me. Let's not wait another 10 years. He nodded slowly, reached into his pocket, and dialed. It rang. And then a soft voice on the other end. Hey, Dad. Hi, sweetie. Someone's here who wants to talk to you. He handed me the phone. I held it for a moment, my heart thudding. Then I pressed it to my ear. Lily? I said. There was a pause. Then, Ellie? And just like that, everything changed again. I couldn't believe my ears when she said my name. Lily. The sister I never knew, the one I only saw in glimpses, trapped in a story that wasn't mine but still connected to me in ways I couldn't yet understand. For a moment, I was frozen, like the whole world had stopped spinning just for this moment. It was surreal, the voice on the other end of the line sounding so familiar, yet so distant. I took a deep breath and tried to steady my heart. I had waited for this moment my entire life, and now that it was finally here, I didn't know what to say. Lily, I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. Ellie, she replied, her voice trembling just a little. I never thought I'd hear from you. After all this time. I didn't think I'd ever hear from you either, I said softly, glancing at Mom and Dad, who were now standing, waiting for this very moment. I didn't even know you existed, I continued, trying to find the right words. I don't know how to process all of this. She was silent for a moment, and I could hear her take a deep breath on the other side of the line. I understand, she said. I know I must sound like a stranger to you, but I promise, I'm not trying to force my way into your life. I just want to talk. Maybe we can start over. Get to know each other, without all the lies, without all the secrets. Her words struck me in a way I wasn't prepared for. I had spent my whole life feeling like something was missing, like there was a piece of me that I couldn't find. And now this girl, this woman, was on the other end of the line, offering me what I never had, the chance to know her, the chance to finally have a family member who wasn't bound by years of deception. I would like that, I said finally, tears welling in my eyes. I'd like to know you. There was a long pause, and then Lily spoke again. Can we meet? I know this is a lot to take in, but I've been thinking about you for so long. And I know you have a lot of questions, but I'm here. I want to hear about you, Ellie. Everything. Even if it's hard. I want to meet you too, I said, my voice shaking. When can we? Tonight, she interrupted. I'm not far from you. I can come to you if that's okay. I'd love that, I said, a smile breaking through my tears. Let's meet tonight. I'll text you the details, she said quickly. And, Ellie, thank you for giving me this chance. I couldn't speak for a moment. It felt like my entire life had just been rewritten in the span of a few minutes. My heart was racing, my hands shaking. This was real. I wasn't dreaming. I was going to meet my sister. I ended the call and looked up at Mom and Dad, both of them standing in the doorway, their faces filled with emotions I didn't have the words for. Well, this is happening, I said, half laughing, half crying. I'm going to meet my sister. Mom took a step forward, wrapping her arms around me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to keep this from you. I didn't know how to fix everything. I didn't want to break you. You didn't break me, Mom, I said, pulling back from her embrace. You broke us. Both of us. Dad stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. I've made a lot of mistakes, Ellie. And I'm sorry. I know I can't fix the past, but I can help you build a future. A better one. With your sister, if you'll allow it. I nodded. For the first time in a long while, I felt like there was hope again. That night, I found myself sitting in a small, cozy cafe waiting. The atmosphere was warm, welcoming. The soft hum of conversations around me didn't drown out the whirlwind inside my head. This wasn't just about meeting a stranger. It was about meeting someone who was a part of me, who shared my blood, my history. I tried to imagine what she would look like, what she would say, what we would talk about. Then the door opened. She stepped inside, looking around, her eyes scanning the room. For a moment, I wasn't sure if she would recognize me, but then her eyes landed on mine. And in that instant, I knew. Lily. She was taller than I expected, with long dark hair and bright blue eyes. She had the same nose as Dad, the same smile as Mom. But there was something else about her, something that reminded me of myself. It was in the way she walked, tentative, unsure, but filled with hope. The same way I must have looked when I first walked into the restaurant, full of questions and doubts. She smiled, taking a step closer, and I stood up. Lily, I whispered, her eyes filled with tears. Ellie. We met halfway, and without saying another word, we hugged. Not the kind of hug you give an acquaintance, but the kind you give family, even if you've never met them before. It was a moment of recognition, of understanding. All the pain, all the confusion, it didn't disappear, but in that moment, it didn't matter. We have a lot of catching up to do, don't we? I said, pulling back from the hug and wiping my tears. We do, she said softly, a smile breaking through the tears. But we'll take it slow, one step at a time. And that was the beginning of something new, something beautiful. A new chapter in both our lives, where we didn't have to carry the weight of the past alone. We had each other now. The end.